Today's story is The Collection. Let's listen together. The apartment smelled like vinegar and something older, something that had been rotting in the walls for 30 years. Mina stood in the doorway of her grandmother's apartment, the key still warm in her hand. She hadn't been here since she was 7, since the incident with the rice. The living room looked exactly as she remembered. Plastic furniture covers, yellowed and brittle. Newspapers stacked floor to ceiling along one wall, sorted by date. And the jars. Hundreds of glass jars lining every surface, filled with liquids in varying stages of separation and decay.
Jesus, Grandma.
Her grandmother, Yeon Haeyeon, dead 3 days now at 89, had lived alone here for 2 decades. The lawyer said Mina was the only living relative, the only one who hadn't cut ties. Mina moved deeper into the apartment. Each jar was labeled in her grandmother's meticulous handwriting. Dates going back years, soy sauce, cooking oil, rice water, fish sauce, and stranger things. Bath water, June 2019. Dishwater, September 2020. Rainwater from the balcony, collected by month and year. Mina lifted one jar. The liquid inside was cloudy, with something solid settled at the bottom. The label read, Tears, Various Occasions, 2015-2023. She set it down quickly. Her phone vibrated. A text from her husband, Junho. "How bad is it?" Mina looked around at the hoard of carefully preserved liquids. The furniture that hadn't been sat on in decades. The single light bulb in the ceiling that her grandmother had replaced only when it completely died.
Bad, really bad.
She sent the text and moved toward the bedroom. The bedroom was worse. More jars, but these were different. Medical in nature. Specimen containers lined the shelves like a laboratory, each one labeled with a body part and a date. Hair clippings, nail parings, skin cells collected from her grandmother's brush, and other things. Things that should have been flushed or thrown away. On the nightstand sat a thick leather journal, its cover stained and warped from years of handling. Mina opened it. Her grandmother's handwriting covered every page in tiny, cramped script. Numbers and calculations filled the margins, but it wasn't a ledger. It was something else. The first entry was dated 1994, the year Mina was born. Entry 1. My daughter has given birth to a girl. Mina, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. I calculated the resources she consumed during gestation. Approximately 45 pounds of food through my daughter's body. 120 gallons of water. The inefficiency is staggering, but she is family. She can be taught. Mina flipped forward. Entry after entry documenting her childhood visits. Every meal she'd eaten here. Every glass of water. Every sheet of toilet paper used. Her grandmother had tracked it all. June 2001. Mina, age 7, visited for 1 week. Total resource consumption: 4 pounds rice, 2 pounds vegetables, 1 pound protein. She looked at the fish twice during one meal, corrected this behavior. Efficiency must be taught early. Mina remembered that day. The salted fish hanging from the ceiling. Her grandmother's rage when she'd glanced at it a second time while eating plain rice. The way her mother had pulled her aside later and whispered that Grandma was just from a different time. But this wasn't frugality from hard times. This was something else. Mina froze. The footsteps were coming from the living room, slow, deliberate. The apartment should have been empty.
Hello, who's there?
No answer. The footsteps stopped. In the living room, one of the jars was moving, not falling, moving deliberately across the shelf, pushed by something Mina couldn't see. The jar labeled tears. It tipped over the edge. Mina lunged forward and caught it before it hit the floor. The liquid inside sloshed against the glass. It was warm. She looked at the date again. 2015-2023. Her grandmother had been collecting her tears for 8 years. But why would someone in their 80s cry so much? A sound came from the kitchen. A whisper. Mina's name.
This isn't funny. I'm calling the police.
She pulled out her phone, but the screen was black. Dead, even though it had been at 60% a moment ago. The kitchen. She had to go through there to get to the front door. Mina forced herself forward, still clutching the jar of tears. The kitchen was the worst room yet. Every surface was covered in containers. Not just jars now, bags, bottles, plastic containers stacked in precarious towers, each one labeled with a substance and a date. But there was something else, a smell, stronger than the vinegar, copper and rot. The refrigerator was running, its motor straining. Mina approached it slowly. The handle was wrapped in plastic, then wrapped again in paper, then sealed with tape, as if her grandmother had been trying to keep something in. Or keep herself out. Mina peeled away the layers. The tape was recent, changed within the last week based on the adhesive. Her grandmother had been sealing and resealing this refrigerator up until her death. The cold air hit her first, then the smell. The refrigerator was full of jars, but these weren't labeled with dates. They were labeled with names. Mina's mother, dead 15 years from cancer. Her grandfather, dead 23 years from a heart attack. Her uncle, dead in a car accident when Mina was 3. And at the back, in the largest jar, a label that made Mina's stomach drop. Mina, reserved for future use. The jar was half full of a clear liquid, something medical, preservative.
What the fuck? And
The jar in her hand, the tears, slipped from her fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor. The liquid spread across the tiles, and where it touched the linoleum began to bubble and peel. Not tears, something else. Mina ran for the door, but it was locked. The deadbolt had been turned from the inside. She yanked at it, but it wouldn't move. Someone had jammed it. Behind her, the jars in the kitchen began to rattle, all of them at once, a chorus of glass against glass. Then they began to open. One by one, the lids unscrewing themselves, the contents spilling onto the counters and floor. Decades of collected liquids mixing together, forming something new. Something that moved with purpose. The liquid flowed across the kitchen floor like a living thing. It gathered itself into a shape, roughly human, roughly the size of her grandmother. A voice came from the shape. Her grandmother's voice, but layered with others. her mother, her grandfather, voices of the dead speaking through the preserved fluids of their lives.
You're so wasteful, Mina, just like your mother was.
The liquid shape moved forward. Where it touched the walls, the paint blistered and peeled.
Do you know how much you've consumed in your life? How much you've taken from this world? I calculated it all. Every drop of water, every grain of rice, the inefficiency of your existence.
You're dead. You're fucking dead.
Death is just another form of waste. I've been preparing, collecting, preserving everything, every part of me, every part of our family. We don't have to end. We can be efficient. We can continue forever.
The liquid was between Mina and the door now. She backed toward the bedroom, her mind racing. The journal. There had been more entries, later ones. The final entry was dated 2 days before her grandmother's death. The experiment is nearly complete. 40 years of collection, every fluid my body produced, every part of my family I could preserve. When this body fails, I will transfer. The liquid remembers, the preserved self continues. I will teach Mina efficiency. I will teach her to never waste. She will join us. She will become resource. She will become collection. Mina tore the page out. There was something else written on the back. A formula. Chemical compounds, ratios. Her grandmother had been consuming her own preserved fluids, drinking decades-old collections of herself, trying to achieve some kind of biological recycling, some kind of immortality through perfect efficiency. And it had worked. Partially. The liquid seeped under the bedroom door. More of it now. The entire kitchen's worth of jars, all flowing together, all moving toward Mina.
You waste so much. So you threw away the water from boiling eggs last week. You let the shower run while you brushed your teeth. You are inefficient. You are wasteful. But you can learn. You can join the collection.
Mina looked around desperately. The window. She ran to it and yanked it open. 12 stories down. The street below looked very far away. Behind her, the liquid shape was taking on more definition. She could see her grandmother's face in it now, formed from the different colored fluids. And other faces too. Her mother's eyes, her grandfather's mouth, a collection of the dead, preserved and combined.
Jumping is wasteful. Your body will be damaged, inefficient. Better to join us willingly. Better to be preserved properly.
Mina looked at the journal in her hand, then at the jar labeled with her name in the kitchen. Her grandmother had been planning this for years, collecting preservative, waiting for the right moment. The liquid reached for her. Mina pulled out her lighter, a habit she'd quit 2 years ago but still carried the lighter just in case, and held the flame to the journal. The pages caught instantly, decades of observations and calculations going up in smoke.
No, that's waste. That's inefficiency.
The liquid shape recoiled from the flame. Mina held the burning journal toward it.
Oh, you want to know about waste, Grandma? You wasted your whole life? Counting? Collecting, preserving. You never lived. You never spent anything. You just hoarded and rotted.
She threw the burning journal at the liquid shape. The alcohol content in the preserved fluids caught immediately. The grandmother shape went up in flames and the smell was horrific. Burning vinegar and decay and chemicals.
Wasteful child. We could have been efficient together. We could have been preserved forever.
The fire spread to the newspapers along the walls. 40 years of hoarded paper, dry as kindling. The apartment became an inferno in seconds. Mina didn't wait to see if the liquid shape would reform. She climbed out the window onto the fire escape and started down. Behind her, the windows of her grandmother's apartment exploded outward from the heat. She made it to the street level just as the first fire truck arrived. The residents were evacuating, confused and frightened. Mina stood across the street and watched the 12th floor burn. She could still hear it. Her grandmother's voice screaming about waste and efficiency until the flames consumed everything. The firefighters asked if anyone was still inside. Mina told them the apartment had been empty. The occupant deceased. Nothing to save. It started to rain as the fire trucks worked. Mina watched the water fall, thinking of all the jars her grandmother would never fill again, all the drops that would simply fall and be wasted. Her phone buzzed. Junho.
Where are you? Are you okay?
She looked at her hands. They were shaking, covered in soot. But they were hers. Not her grandmother's, not the collections.
I'm okay. I'm coming home.
That night, Mina stood in her bathroom and let the shower run. She didn't get in. She just watched the water go down the drain. Gallons of it. Wasted. Junho found her there.
Mina? The news said there was a fire, that the whole apartment burned.
She turned off the shower and looked at her husband.
There was nothing worth saving.
She didn't tell him about the jars, about the liquid shape, about her grandmother's voice promising eternal efficiency. Some things were better left as ash. That night she dreamed of breaking glass, of liquid flowing away, of 40 years of obsession dissolving into rain and river and ocean. When she woke, the apartment was quiet. No jars, no whispers, no collection. Mina made coffee and poured out half the cup before drinking it. The waste felt like victory, like breathing after being underwater too long. She thought about her grandmother sometimes, about the woman she must have been before the obsession took hold, before every drop became precious, before efficiency became everything. And she thought about the jars melted in the fire, their contents finally released. 40 years of perfect preservation, wasted in a single night.
Good.
She said it out loud to the empty kitchen, to the ghost of her grandmother, to herself.
Good.
Outside, it started to rain again. Mina opened the window and let it come in, let it soak the curtains, let it pool on the floor. Beautiful, glorious, necessary waste. And somewhere in the ashes of the apartment, in the twisted remains of hundreds of glass jars, something that had been preserved for decades finally let go, finally stopped counting, finally became nothing but water and memory and rain.